It is another Blue Room Weekly, and it is me, Warren, and I've got Dave with me on this week's show. And we've got another packed show coming up once again. We've got lots to chat about, including Man United this weekend. Lots to go over in terms of different things like the team selection and some Man United memories that me and Dave have both got, which we'd love to talk about. And we'll finish the show with a little bit of chat about Bramley-Moore. But as I said, I've got my mate Dave with me. Dave, we've just been talking a little bit off air then about the game on Saturday, and we're going to go straight into it. We owe these one, don't we? We really do owe these one this weekend. I think we've got Man United at a good time, and we're in good form. It's time to get a bit of payback, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And you think about the predicament they're in as well. I mean, it's a taste. I mean, do you know? I was sitting there looking at. I'm a bit of a nerd. I look at the league table all the time. Do you know what I mean? I start like adding all different things together, thinking, do you know what, we do this, if we do that, like a lot of people do. Do you know what I mean? If we get this amount of points, we can get closer to maybe getting the Europa Conference position. And that's going far too ahead, isn't it? Really, but given the run of form we have had, who knows? But yeah, Man United. I mean, they're a catastrophe right now. We're above them in the league, given the fact we were in the relegation zone. What, just over 2 months ago, which I think staggering, really. And the run of form they've had is shocking. I was looking, I think they've lost 3 of their last 12 games, I think it is. Nonetheless, they're fine in Europe, which is which is ironic, really, isn't it? They're in a European competition that many of their fans, I don't think, really give a shit about. So going into this, we go 4 points above them if we win this, which again is like remarkable when you think where the two teams were in recent months. And yeah, them coming to Goodison, I can't help but have that Garnacho overhead in my mind, because it's it's up there. You'd say possibly in the top 10 Premier League goals ever scored. That, because it was ridiculous how he did it from that angle, how it goes in. I mean, I think everybody in attendance there at Goodison would just, what's just happened there? That just didn't. It looks like something off FIFA or something like that. It was just it was sensational. And yeah, I think when you get United, Goodison for the last time, they're another one on the list that I think, obviously Liverpool is the top of that, where you think, do you know what, the last game against these at Goodison, given the rivalry we had with United in seasons gone by in the 80s and stuff like that, in the cups, this is a big one for us. This is one of those that's on the list where you think, wow, this is United's last game at Goodison. I'm sure they'll feel the same. And I know a lot of United fans who like Goodison, they'll miss Goodison. I think it's been quite nice to hear many fans saying how much they will miss Goodison, which obviously they never really said, but because it's the last time they've gone there, they're thinking, wow, Everton aren't playing here again. We're not coming to play at Everton. Because like many say, it's almost a cliche now that it's one of the last few traditional grounds that are going. There aren't many. I mean, obviously looking at Villa against Liverpool, that's one that's still remaining. Maybe Leeds. We can start counting them towards one. It becomes less and less because so many clubs are having to move on and get different stadiums and build different stadiums and whatnot. United are one that look like they're going that way too. There's a big comparison here, Warren, and I was looking at this last week when they were playing when they were playing Tottenham, and I had to edit what's his man's called again, Amarim's interview beforehand.
Oh, Amarim.
Amarim, yeah, he was talking about Ange Postecoglou and saying how much of a comparison there were between them. Both are big clubs who should be in and around the top 4 challenge, who have managers who, and I'd say Postecoglou is probably under more pressure than he is, but they're in a situation where they're massively underachieving. And the other side of it, the Evertonian in my mind thinks, you know what, that I was thinking that the vulnerable is probably the worst time to go against them, because you start to like maybe take a step too far, thinking that this is 3 points written all over this. Nonetheless, I think with Moyes, the facet of having him at our club now completely changes everything. I think every game it's changing the way in which we set up. It surprises us. It surprises me. You look at how we fielded against Palace, how we've played since he's came back. I think many clubs, many managers will be astounded by the way Everton are now, because they're out of the shell that it was under Dyche and managers we've had gone by. against these, it's a really intriguing game. I think, and so many times I thought this week, what, I'll probably take a draw. We should be doing Man United over at Goodison, and I say that with a lot of confidence.
I'm just looking, Dave, at their injury list because they've been hit hard, and it's some of the players here, and it's big players as well who've actually done well for them this year. I know they've had a downturn of a season, but I'm just looking here, like Martinez is the centre-back's injured now. He's out for the season. I know Mason Mount hasn't quite hit the heights yet, but he's out as well. Looks like he's going to be absent from this one. Kobe Mainoo, there's a doubt with, I believe, as well. And Ahmed Diallo, who's been fantastic for them. I think he's been one of the highlights, the young lads, in what's been quite a tumultuous season for them. But I look at this and I know what we always say, and I think we come from that mindset and that generation, Dave, me and you, of having that mindset of, well, this is Everton. This is Everton. The worst could always happen. And look, of course it could. But I feel that with this game, these are there for the taking. They really are. I think they were so poor again last week against Tottenham. I think behind the scenes, there's a lot going on at that club where there's not a lot. It reminds me in some ways of what we were a year or two ago, where there was just no correlation between players, fans, boards. There was no sort of, pun not intended, there was nothing united about our club. And that's what it feels like with them. Every time I go online and social media, I'm always seeing about how there's an issue with ticket prices, or there's an issue with someone's being turfed out of the season ticket seat because they've given the ticket to a mate or something like that, or how the staff are cutting employees down and the redundancies are being made. It just feels like a very unhappy club at the moment. And I read again about all this money. I don't know if you've seen the news this week about the money they paid to Dan Ashworth and Eric Ten Hag, 14.5 million. And this is a club that is just absolutely obliterating money left, right, and centre. And as you said, what have they got to show for it? They're below Everton, who ourselves have been in a wreck over the last couple of years. So I think these are there for the taking. I really do. And I just think that, look, it's Goodison. It's a 12:30 kickoff. It's going to be moody again. It's going to be another emotional one again. You've touched on there about the fact that it's another big game against, a side who are local rivals in a sense, the next big city up the road sort of thing. I think, though, Dave, it's just if we turn up and we perform like we have done recently, I can't see anything other than an Everton win. I don't know what you feel about that, but I just think we're in such a good position. And I don't want to sound overconfident, and of course anything could happen. And, even the Garnacio overhead kick, that was the game just after the points deduction. And I remember Man United fans saying, I'm dreading going to Goodison. I'm dreading going to Goodison because they're going to be angry. They're going to be vocal. We're performing poorly at the minute. I just can't see anything other than an Everton win. And that goal just knocked the stuffing out of us. It just took the stuffing out of us. And I think a couple of times down the last few years, they've done that. They've just knocked the stuffing out of us when, either Rashford's got a goal, his first goal in 14 or whatever it might have been when he played for them, or our mate Martial, who scores against nobody but us. Thankfully, he's not playing this weekend. It just feels like the last couple of times they've had that little bit of rub of the green. It feels like it's our turn now.
Yeah, it does. I think that's really a good way of putting it. When they come to Goodison, given the Rooney situation, which has lasted for over a decade, didn't it? There was an extra bit of spice to bringing them to Goodison there, and the way he used to celebrate in front of us and all that. Where I don't know, these days I don't know if he'd regret it or not. You'd have to ask him. But I'd imagine when he was at Man United, he's their legend, isn't he? He's the greatest goal scorer they've ever scored. There's been, I think, a quite unfortunate for us relationship with Man United, because it always felt like they get a best player that we've got, and we'd end up with one that they're cast-offs. Remember, like a Schneiderlin, or Tim Howard as well. I don't want to go into him too much, and other players that we've ended up getting from them. Darren Gibson, players like that have been the cast-offs that United have thrown our way, and I think it's. I'll go ahead and say it. I think it's a bit of humble pie. I think that United look like, obviously, no issue with their fans in that regard, but when you've had success for so much time, And, you think about how much of a kick in the balls that is for their fans when we've been low for quite some time. So you sort of get used to it. And when Everton win a game, it's a surprise, and I still feel that way right now, even though Moyes has been on this great run of form and Everton look like Everton again. This game feels like Everton again, Warren. That's why I approach it with a lot of confidence here. The only thing that's wrong with it is the 12:30. I can't stand the early kicks off the weekend because it if you lose that game, it wrecks your weekend, doesn't it? If you win that game, you've got the best couple of days ever in the week, haven't you? It proper sets you off for going back to work and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, there's a lot riding on this for us as well. As much as many people are sort of trying to put out that we're safe, and I declared finally, I overcame the fact that I was saying we weren't. I think we're safe, which means that I think they're safe too. Which, I don't know, I think you go into a side that I don't think are particularly too bothered. They'll have lost the emphasis they had of doing anything in the Premier League. They're in the European competition, which I guess they'd say would be their bread and butter now, and getting a trophy and trying to win a trophy. And a manager. I don't know. It's really interesting because I don't think a manager's going to be in danger of losing their job quite quickly. But I tell you what, he's edging towards that way, isn't he? Things are moving in that direction there. And it makes me feel as if that there's so many other things, and you hinted at it. There's so many things that's gone on so much deeper and underlying at that club that you'd almost have sympathy with the manager. The squad of players is just all over the place. The amount of money they've spent as well, you don't have to go into that too much because they've always been the club that spends, till City came along, that spent the most money in the Premier League. And you're talking about players they've brought in, like Mason Mount's non-existent now. Rashford, look what happened there. Just fell off and he's gone to Villa. Doesn't look like he's doing any better than there in the first couple of games that I've seen him. It just looked like they're a shadow of the former selves, and that makes it like Everton should be expecting to win this. I'm not a particular gambler, but I always look on the odds, and Everton are favourites to win this game. I mean, could you have imagined that earlier this season? Even though they were quite poor, they were still a side that was in the top half of the table, and we were in a relegation fight. How quickly the tables turn around. It's staggering the way it goes, and I'd be gutted. I'd be really disappointed, and I don't expect us to come away from that game with a loss. And I think that if you keep that in context of what this season's been about, that's a big thing to be able to say now, that we'd be disappointed coming away, or overly disappointed coming away without at least a point. And we're probably, like you said there, even disappointed if you only get a point against these. This should be, and I think will be, a Goodison that we've seen under Moyes since he's came back. You look at the Spurs, you look at Leicester, you look at the derby there, where we were the better side against Liverpool. Felt like it was going to be an old-fashioned cliche where Everton have played better, Liverpool come and take a win and nick it against us, and we're the ones who took that. It does make me feel a lot, and I don't know how you feel about this, and our listeners will let us know, of course, but does this feel different to you? I know we spoke about on the previous weekly you were doing, was listening to it. Have we got Everton back? It's a joy to watch Everton. It feels like much better. Things feel different. It feels like you've moved away from all of the misery that we've had for a long time and starting to, that we're reaching the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know myself. I think it's too early to say that for me. But if Everton finish this season in the same run of form that we're in now, and look, there's still, 13, 14 games left to do so. Given the games you've got at Goodison, given the emotion at Goodison as well, which I'm sure we sort of hint upon every single podcast we do, don't we? And rightly so, given the countdowns on, isn't it, to the games. And coming up against a side like this should be a side that, as fans, we should relish. One of those where we're screaming the place down, much the same as the derby, much the same as what we've done lately. And we're going into it in a real run of form there. And Moyes has got us in that situation in the past. There are various occasions when we've gone on big runs of draws and wins where Everton have looked like getting back to being the best of the rest, always being the fifth place side, getting into European football. Obviously, we're not doing that this season, but it feels like that atmosphere is starting to build up.
I think there is a difference, and I think the last week or two, and even before the build up to the derby and what happened in the aftermath of that game, it has felt different, and it's not just necessarily down to the form. I think, we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the show, but all the chat and all the focus with being on the test events at the new grounds, I think that's really shone a light of how Everton are moving forwards again. And I think you're right. I think there is the tangible light at the end of the tunnel. It's not just a figure of speech. I think fans are actually seeing that light now,
Yeah.
which is why I feel going into this game, we should be feeling positive about it. We should be thinking, we're capable of getting at least a point, if not more. I would be disappointed if we didn't get a win on Saturday. At the same time, a point is not the worst result. I'd be gutted if we lost, because just the way things are at the minute, and it just feel like a complete. If we did get a defeat, it'd feel like a complete sort of a break in the momentum that we've built recently.
Yeah.
And I just want the momentum to keep going. And I think if you can't get up for it, not can't get up for it, but if you can't be looking forward to a game after what we've been up to and all the emotions of the last 2 weeks, and that's the difference. What I as a fan have felt anyway in the last couple of weeks is, I commented on the post match last week that I cannot wait for this game. I cannot wait to get there again and get in my seat and watch us play. And I haven't felt that way for a long time. So whether we win, lose, or draw, just having that feeling back, Dave, is something that we've not had for a while. And I think it's only right that us as fans grasp onto that feeling and use it as a force for momentum, and use it as a force to get the atmosphere going, and use it as something where we can look forward to these games going into, the last few games of the season and into the new season, into the summer. So that's the way I feel about it. But, we will talk about, up until the last game, about the emotional pull of Goodison. And it was, I think for me, it's our first home game since the derby. And I think what the derby really represented for me was, I think it hit home more than ever that Goodison's on its countdown now. I think it was always in the back of our minds that we were in the last season, but the Liverpool game, knowing that was the last derby and how it finished, really set that thought wheel in motion. And I think the fact that it's Man United coming to town, again, and I've heard a few people go, look, it's virtually impossible getting tickets now. And I know it was difficult getting tickets anyway, but it feels like that's gone into overdrive. So the whole idea about Goodison is starting to move now and starting to go. So with that in mind, Dave, I did want to ask you about some United memories that you've had at Goodison down the years, because for me, and we're at roughly the same age, when we were kids, United dominated. United won the lot. United won everything. And if United come to town, it was a defeat. The amount of games I went at Goodison as a kid to get to see us play them, and very rarely was it a win, and very rarely did we play well, because they were just a fantastic side. So this has always been quite a big game for me, and regardless of where they are in the table, I always feel that if you get one over on Man United, it's a massive, massive result. Almost in some respects bigger than a result against Liverpool, because, like I said, we're from that generation of seeing United absolutely dominate, and players like Cantona, Ronaldo, Tevez when he was there. I'm thinking back to the teams that won European Cups: Roy Keane, David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Dwight York, Andy Cole. All these players that I'm reeling off, they were just Premier League all-stars at once upon a time. So this is a massive game. But yeah, just going back to that, United memories down the years. I mean, for me, the two Ferguson 1-0s, I mean, that one, the second one when we come fourth that year when we beat them, it was a midweek game. And I remember Martin Tyler saying, he commentated on the Bayern Munich game in '85, and he said,
you've just taken that out of my mouth then.
Martin Tyler said, the Bayern Munich game was the loudest I've ever heard Goodison, or the best game he's ever seen atmosphere-wise and whatever, everything that encompasses that. He said, but if you wanted something as close to that, the next closest thing, and it wasn't far off, was the Ferguson 1-0. And I think the ground took off that night. That for me is a big memory. But I've also got other good memories. Steaming through the middle of the park and making it 3-1. Arteta when we were 3-1 down, and we scored them two really late goals to make it 3-3 again. The ground went off that day. And we've done not too bad in the recent history against Man United, albeit the last few years. Have you got any United memories that stick in your mind where you go, yeah, if we could see that again on Saturday, that'd be the one?
Yeah, I think the Duncan Ferguson one, the second one there, the commentary from Martin Tyler was that was something he probably should put at the top of his CV if he ever wants to come out of retirement and do commentary again, if he ever had to do that. I mean, it's like he said something at the start of the commentary when that cross goes in, like, just imagine Goodison's, something about Goodison, he said,
the atmosphere's amazing now, just imagine if they score. And they
That's
do
right,
with
yeah.
Duncan Ferguson, yeah.
And when he goes in, Martin Tyler, as a commentator, I was a big fan of this. He didn't get overly emotional as a commentator. I think that was a decent trait about what he did. And the occasions that he did, you knew how much it meant. And you think about when, obviously, when City won the league, when Aguero scored, all that sort of thing, it's in folklore over at City, isn't it? With that one, with Big Dunk, I felt the same from it, because it's Duncan Ferguson 10 years on. That was like proper. Anytime I watch it now, it's like it's a shiver down your spine. And that goal as well, he just bullied Rio Ferdinand in that game. I think Ferdinand's come out and said that. He just ran riot.
Yeah.
He just bullied him. And Dunk was like that against them, obviously, when he does it when Joe's there. And, he has that similar game against sides, and against them, it's another one where he just seemed to step it up. Big Dunk, and we talk about it. I thought it's quite funny, actually, because we talk about Beto and the way things are going in a positive direction with him. And I made a good point, I think, well, was my opinion the other night on BBC Merseyside, saying I don't think he's any good at heading the ball. Despite the fact that he's such a tall lad, I don't think he's any good at heading it. But what he is good at is properly physically just sticking his ass all over the place and, bullying, trying to get in and amongst defenders. And he did that against, that's a wrong term to use probably, but anyway, when against Palace, though, Warren, that's exactly what he did. It was, he just tried to make a nuisance of himself. And I think that probably does him a little bit of a disservice, given the finishing we've seen in the last few games. He's got what is essentially we need right now, albeit it's come along over a year later. Looks like David Moyes is getting the best out of him. But in terms of Dunk as well, I mean, when he came up against centre-backs, everyone, I think most remember what happened there with that dig he put on Paul what's his name? Shana at Wigan, when he gave him a dig in the stomach. And there's that famous
with Jimmy Bullard,
just looking at him like he was talking to a nutcase. That happened. And yeah, I mean, against United, he was like that. Just to move away from Goodison a second, it was when we should have beat them away at Old Trafford, and he dominated them as well. Then he scored 2, went 2-0 up. And Jordi Cruyff, who was crap, you wouldn't even go near his great dad. He ended up scoring 2, I think, to equalise it for them. And yeah, I mean, we do owe them one. And I think the Rodwell goal, and where's Jack Rodwell now? I mean, what a shame that happened with him. Because going to City, like many who ended up going to City at that point, when they were starting to buy players, much like Chelsea did back in the day, where they just sign anybody who looked young, English, and positive, and looking like they were going to step up. That goal he scored against them when we won that game 3-1. Gorgeous day as well. Really nice day. When Fernandez scored that Fernandez goal as well, that was one of the most talented goals I've seen against Man United, when he picks it up. And, we were really on the verge, infamous now, isn't it? On the verge of signing him permanently. He was doing the tour of the stadium. And yeah, we were 2-0 up, and he scores that goal just after half time, and he absolutely ripped it. And then you talk about the 3-3, and the thing that I remember most about this was obviously Kale, great header, 3-2. I think it was Berbatov who scored a great goal for them as well earlier on in the game. They're 3-1 up with 5 minutes left. Kale gets one back, and you're thinking, just everyone get up there. Like the goalkeeper, hits it as hard as he can up into their box, see if anything happens. Comes to Arteta, a couple of deflections, goes in. And the thing I remember much more funny than those moments, which is obviously when we were going hysterical at the time, was when Moyes and Steve Rounds run onto the pitch because Jagielka's breaking forward and the ref blows his whistle. And Steve Round, bless him, he's a really nice guy. They come running onto the pitch, and it was like, again, referring to the fact you're a teacher, it's like you had an assistant that wants to like follow the ropes of what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? So they'll get the same trends you have. They'll get the same as like seeing you as someone as a mentor, in fact. And they'll copy everything you do. And it just felt like when Moyes ran onto the pitch, absolutely giving it lows to the ref. Steve Rams is like right next to him, behind him, so they're doing the exact same things, pointing his finger at the ref and absolutely fuming. I remember that vividly when he did that, because everyone was going ballistic, saying, Everton probably going to go and score there. And I don't think many will remember the part that happened just before he blew the whistle, or he blew the whistle and then Jagielka carried on and had a shot from just outside the box that was saved.
I think Jagielka was inside the United half, and he was like,
right.
The crowd were going mad, and then the whistle went. But I think because everyone was so onto the game, no one really heard it. And then the shot's gone in, everyone's like, oh, and then like you said, the next thing you just see everyone running. It was, but you know what?
It probably helped Jagielka because he didn't score.
He didn't score.
If that had gone in, there would have been a riot if that had gone in.
If that had gone in, that would have been one of the all-time great last minute. But do you know what? I'm going to contradict myself, and I'm going to correct myself as well, because I've said we've got a decent, all right, recent record against them. We haven't. The last time we beat them was in 2022 under Lampard, when Anthony Gordon scored that deflected goal. And then before that, the last time before that was, do you remember, under Marco Silva, when we, boiling hot day, obliterated them 4-0. Luca Dean scored and Charlison, and that was a brilliant performance by Everton that day as well. So we've had some really good times. And then before that, 2015, we beat them 3-0. John Stones scored, and James McCarthy and Morales as well. So we haven't done as we've had good memories against them, but they've been few and far between. So hopefully we can sign off with a win on Saturday. But I just want to quickly go on to the game itself and about team selection, Dave. I think David Moyes has got a couple of big decisions to make this weekend, because they performed so well at Palace, and I don't know if Doucouré's back this weekend. Is he back from suspension this weekend, Doucouré? Or is he 3 games? It was just the one, wasn't it? I think it was 2 yellows, I think. I want to see.
Yellows, was it?
Let me... You can edit this out in a minute, because I'm just going to check.
That's fine. Well, I'll just carry on talking I'll carry on talking while you're looking at it.
Because suspended is Doucouré back.
With him, I actually think he had a really poor game against Liverpool. I think, there's the record. I think that obviously goes in his favour. The fact that you don't lose when Doucouré scores. I think that he's been really poor this season, and if he is available, I wouldn't start.
So he is back, and Doucouré. So I'll tell you what, if you edit that last bit out, and then we'll go from here.
No, I'll leave it in. We're all right. We're all right to make mistakes there.
Well, I was just going to say to you that. Well, I was just going to say about team selection, so I should have probably checked that beforehand, but I've just checked again now, and Doucouré is back for this. Now he's available for selection. Going back to the Palace game, just very briefly, we talked about the fact that Everton were hit injury-wise and with suspensions, and they've gone down and have done a magnificent job. However, I did feel in that first half especially that you could see why Doucouré gets picked, because off the ball, I know he's not great with it, but off the ball, he provides so much in terms of Everton's pressing game. And you could see a situation where he brings Doucouré back in for Alcaraz for that reason. However, what was very clear is that the winning goal comes from a little bit of composure, a little bit of class that sadly Doucouré's game lacks. And I don't think Doucouré's being as bad a player as people have made out. I think he obviously there's a lot of times when he frustrates you. But Alcaraz just provided in that moment against Palace, and in a lot of moments, I think in the past for the Beto goal as well, just provides that little bit of quality. I think David Moyes has got a decision to make on Saturday about what he does. Do you feel, Dave, he should bring Doucouré back in? Or should he go with the team that got him the 3 points? And should he stick with Alcaraz in this instance against a Man United team that is faltering and can be got at? What do you feel he should do?
I think he sticks with Alcaraz there as well, because when you get a new player in, it's exciting, isn't it? We talked about the crowd there. when you're seeing him on the ball, when he come on and made a bit of a cameo, he nearly scored that free kick when he made his debut. I feel that starting him will not only be the better choice of the two players, if you're talking about Decore maybe coming back in for him and when he started there at Palace. I also think it goes with the crowd too. Seeing whether it be his first start at good or something, I think I'm right in saying, because he come on off the bench, didn't he?
Yeah.
That'd be his first start there. He seems an infectious kind of player to me. Seems one that it's all right to laugh at it now, but at the time he probably could have got himself sent off when there was the scrap going on when Curtis Jones is going one-on-one with Decore over at the Liverpool fans. And I don't know if it's a South American style. I don't really want to stereotype, but it sounds like I am. It seems like he's got that real attitude where he wants to get involved all the time. And I think that's a proper... That's a facet of Everton, I think, that really will engage to him quite quickly. Obviously, his goal at Palace is going to make him feel that way, but he just looks like one of them. He has the bit between his teeth all the time, and he won't stop. When I talked to Tim Vickery, he said he's that kind of lad. You know, he's one of those who'll have a real aggression about how he plays, and that should be a typical role to have when he comes to us, given that what we've needed that sort of player for quite some time. I think somebody who you can play in a variety of roles as well. I think he's quite versatile. I mean, when I was speaking to him again, he said he can play up front, he can play as like a false nine, which has sort of gone out of fashion saying that name, but that's basically what it is still, isn't it? Playing just off a number 9. If you had him just behind Beto, that could work. With him Dye being out as well, which is, I mean, it's a massive blow. I think we're fortunate to get to the stage we are point-wise, because he's been our best player this season. I can't think of anybody really who gets as close to him. Maybe Pickford, or I mean, Jake O'Brien's making a big run, isn't he, for the best form in the side as we approach the latter stages of the season. I'm a big fan of his already. I think he's brilliant playing in a position that he's probably not that used to. Big lad who's a right back. You don't often see that. I was talking to a friend about this. You think like Dan Burn. I think he plays a fullback at Newcastle, but also he's got the versatility to play as a centre back too, and he's quick. I think I emphasised this the other day. We have 3 giants in Branthwaite, Beto, and him. Each of them are really quick, and how often do you see that? Big lads aren't normally quick. And
good on the ball as well, and the 2 defenders good on the ball. You know, and that's a thing that you stereotypically say is the big lumps at the back. They're only good for heading and tackling, whereas these lads are happy to bring the ball out and are comfortable with it at the feet as well.
And I thought going back to Alcaraz there, the interview at the very end of it with Jack Harrison, I think it was brilliant. Jack Harrison obviously is people want him gone. I'd say the majority of Everton fans don't want him to stay at the club. I think he actually did well against Palace when he was playing there and he came on. I felt that with Alcaraz though, somebody who's an unknown for many other sides. Obviously, United will be doing the homework, looking at someone who scored the winner for Everton there, and a new signing. You know, they're going to be over him. They're going to be trying to get under the collar of him really, and try and get him to be aggressive, because you know it's a game against Man United. The Goodison factor that we've spoken about, the type of lad who you can probably sort of, you know, if you're getting him up to start throwing himself about, he's looking at cards perhaps and maybe losing his head a little bit. But I feel against these, if you play him as a more advanced midfield player, much the same way where Decore gets, he's quicker. He's, well, from what we've seen so far, he's better on the ball. What you'll lack from him, which you probably gain from Decore, is that physical battle he's able to do. He's set piece wise, he's a threat as well, which still is a big part of what we do. Albeit it started to go by the wayside a little bit, the set pieces, given how good we've looked going forward in a different direction. Our counter-attacking style of football has looked really, really good. I think Alcaraz is part of that. You look when he set up Beto there, he burst forward after that ridiculous throw-in that Mitchell tries to put back. He bursts onto it as quick as he can. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a really good angle where you see Moyes was like just had his arms behind him. He's just like screaming, "Go, go, go!" with his arms on it, and then he sets up a really good finish for Beto there. I think you've got somebody who will be somebody who the opponent that come to Goodison are just going to have a nightmare against when he gets the ball. I think it's going to be the type of game where they'll try and put their best midfield player, or even in and around two, are focusing on him above anybody else, really. And yeah, I mean, I know I've gone quite a way about this, but I'd start him over Doucouré, no danger. But that doesn't mean that Doucouré doesn't have a role in this game, and what you could bring him on to do. He'll start on the bench. I think many would agree with me saying he'd start on the bench. Obviously, he just doesn't take to them. They want him gone. But you know, you can't deny that he has an impact when he plays for us. Look, it's not as often as it was a couple of seasons ago when, you know, he was a massive part of us gaining results, keeping us up with the goal against Bournemouth as well. He's still got a place to play there. But yeah, I mean, I think Alcaraz there. I think that's a day at Goodison where it'll be a big one for him, and it'll be something else that keeps us on our toes as well.
I think for me, I'd be surprised if Doucouré didn't come back in, and I just think from a tactical point of view more than he thinks he's better than Alcaraz point of view. I think Doucouré coming for Alcaraz. I just think purely, like I said earlier, about when I watched that Palace game in the first half, it looked a little bit disjointed in terms of we looked a bit off it. And I know a lot to do with that was the physicality of it and the mental side of it, mentally and physically a little bit off it after the previous Wednesday against Liverpool. But I just feel that Doucouré gives you that a little bit more of that pressing game than what Alcaraz does. But again, though, I think if Alcaraz was to start, I think that'd be in a way quite bold from Moyes, because it doesn't feel like a Moyes decision to do it. It feels like he might go safe back to Doucouré. But for me, Dave, I think that's the one area or one decision that a decision needs to be made. I think the rest of the team picks itself for two reasons. They're on a win and run, and another reason because of all the injuries we've got. Again, there, I think it's nine players we've got, you know, missing for the game against United, which under the circumstances, again, I just want to highlight, we're just doing brilliant. We're doing absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, I think we're all set for another emotional weekend at Goodison, another big team, the last time they visit, and you think of all the memories down the years, and we haven't even touched on all the games down in the 80s where United comes tired, fierce games, because I know there's a big Merseyside Manchester rivalry now, but there certainly was in the 80s as well. So a lot of history in this game, a lot of memories from this game, and I think Saturday hopefully will be another one, and hopefully as well a good win for Everton. Just finally then, Dave, because I don't want to talk too much about it because I know a lot of the lads, and if you haven't listened already, by the way, listen to the fantastic instant reaction from Monday night at the test event with Les, with Mose, and with Matt Jones. I think it was a really good listen, and I was also listening to the byline, Dave, with Matt and Paddy, and Matt really eloquently put it that he said he had a lot of fears about Bramley-Moore in the sense that he didn't know if it'd feel the same. He didn't know if it'd be a worry about how it would feel walking in. Would it feel empty? Would it feel too big? Would it feel too small? Would it feel this? Would it feel that? And a lot of his fears, what he was describing on the byline, and if you haven't listened to it yet, give it a listen, because as we always say on this show, a fantastic listen with Matt and Paddy. He was relaying his fears, and what comforted me was he said a lot of those fears, there's no need to have them. He said it's everything you want and more. And I think the big thing I've heard this week about the test events is the one phrase I've heard the most: the photos and videos don't do it justice. I think there is going to be some teething problems naturally. I think there's going to be some, how do I put it? I think fans are going to be struggling to find a routine for a while, because that routine going to Goodison's been embedded in us for decades now, and everyone's got their own routine, what they know, what they're going to do each and every weekend at Goodison. That's going to take a little bit of while to get used to, and it's going to take a little bit of while getting used to being at a new stadium. But in terms of all the cosmetics of it as well, that's still got to be done. You know, the little personal touches like EFC written here or signs being put up, that's still all got to be done. We've got to remember it's still just a test event. And all these journalists coming out going, oh, it's just like Hamburg's ground, or it's just the Bundesliga ground. I'm ignoring that, because the fans who've gone in there have said different. And with these personal touches, hopefully to be added to it, it's going to be fantastic. But just finally on Bramley-Moore, I know you were there on Monday. Is Matt right in what he's saying, that these fears, these ideas that it's not going to feel personal, it's not going to feel intimate, it's not going to feel anything like what Goodison was, are they all just fears that we don't need to even worry about, because it's just like what everyone said this week? It seems to be a phenomenal place and going to be a phenomenal stadium. And also, Dave, you can't really do much with 10,000 in the ground. I think it's going to be even better when there's 25,000 in there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think much of what Matt said there is absolutely spot on, and the way in which he worded it as well. Do go and listen to it if you haven't, with him, Les, and Mose as well, obviously giving their take on it. I had trepidation. Obviously, I mean, we're not going to bang on it. I bang on about it too much of a point on what's going on with the council and how to access it and all that sort of thing. But I got offered I was lucky enough to be dropped off by my missus at the Tampai at the top, which, if nobody's, well, the majority of our listeners who haven't been around the new stadium, it's just literally probably parallel with that. Further up the road, it's like an Asian market / restaurant there. And because I think it's quite ironic actually that it was gridlocked. The traffic was gridlocked because people are coming out of the city from finishing work and everything in around like 6 o'clock. So I tried to get there for 6:30, and obviously you had fans. They were closing the roads. A lot of the stewards didn't seem to know, because I did find out that a lot of the stewards were brought in. They weren't the Everton ones, or they weren't all Everton stewards. So they came in as well. So there are a few things, and like you say, the teething problems around those sorts of things, I think they need to be ironed out. And obviously it's gone quite massive towards Steve Rotherham and whatnot with that. Walking down to the stadium, seeing the top of it. And, I made the sort of analogy that it felt a little bit like, have you seen The Wizard of Oz?
I haven't, but go on.
The Wizard of Oz is behind the curtain because he's just a normal fella. He's not really this big monster. And that sort of saying is like he's behind the curtain. And it felt like that to me, because you've got the wall, you've got 3 really comfortable entrances there that were available to go in. Really simple way of getting in there. Security, fine. Everything like that was just seamless, really. Coming from that side as well, again, was fine. Sandhills, obviously, issues with that too. But I'd like to think you put that by the wayside for now. If we're just talking specifically about that stadium, it's phenomenal. It's better than what I thought it'd be. It had things there that I didn't think that Everton had thought about too much, but they have. It felt like you could almost still smell the fresh paint. The paint didn't even feel like it was dry. It was that perfectly just up being made. Do you know what I mean? And that's what people need to keep in mind about. Well, that wasn't blue. Why is the concrete there still? It's really grey and it looks crap when you see the angle looking at the south stand there. But in terms of it was just simplicity in itself and getting in there. Like you say there, you've got 5 times that amount, which is going to happen when we get there in August, and obviously the game that goes just before that. So, there'll be more of a review on that. There'll be more with more people there. Obviously, it's crowded, and we'll see how that goes on in that place. But Everton couldn't have done a more perfect job for that stadium. It takes a lot for me to say that, because I've been heavily critical. I've had the club onto me myself in the years of my life, sort of working what I've done. That when I've complained about the club and moaned about the club on our podcast, because I know a lot of the club listen to us, I give them immense credit for what that stadium is, what it looks like. In how it feels is really interesting, because been asked several times, is it going to be simple enough to bring a Gladys Street atmosphere, which is basically the South Stand, is going to be the new big version of it? Can we bring that to there? Can we bring a lot of Goodison to there? I think that's more complicated than it is easy to say, because people will say, well, do you know what? There's more of us going there, so the atmosphere should be bigger. Yeah, I think in general, you do feel like when you get in there. I really like the space you've got as well as a fan. I think it's perfectly comfortable. The rails, everything like that. You need to stand up if you want to sit down. That's there in sort of the lower part of the south tier. And yeah, could not fault that one bit. Atmos couldn't really judge that by only having 10,000, like you say there. But it's the acoustics, everything
Well,
like
I've heard
that.
a lot just on the atmosphere, Dave. I've heard a lot of people come out and say the way the roof design is, it feels like the noise goes up, but then travels, sort of like reverberates back around and down again. So it feels like everything's up. Because, one of the complaints about these open air venues around the world is that the noise goes up and it doesn't travel back.
Correct.
Whereas this stadium, a few people were saying about how the acoustics of it, you felt that there was more than 10,000 in there anyway, because it just hit the roof and reverberated back and bounced back. So that's a positive, and I think that was a lot of the concern, years ago when the whole design was being first, thought of, was we need to keep as close to the Goodison atmosphere where you're on top of it, where the noise gets kept in. I've been to many away games, Dave, and some of these, I've heard a lot of opposition fans call Bramley-Moore a soulless dome this week. And to hear Everton fans actually go in and say, no, it's not like that. But I have been to these quote-unquote soulless domes around the country that are built on the edge of a motorway and the outskirts of a city, and there's no character to it. There's no personal touches to it. It's just a stadium where football can be played. Whereas listen, you're listening to someone talk here who, if it was my way, we would have redeveloped Goodison. And I know that wasn't possible, but Goodison's everything to me. So you're looking at someone who's probably in the Matt Jones side of things, where I'm fearful. I'm fearful about going in. I'm fearful about, will it be exactly? I was actually questioning the other day. I was thinking, do you know what? Will I get to a point after the first season where I feel it's not the same? And do I carry on? And I think a lot of people might have that question go through their minds. But I think from what you've said, from what Matt said, from what Mo said, Les has said, all the lads who were involved with us, Dave, what everyone has said is that actually no, everyone's just been incredibly positive about it, and that gives me, because me, my decision. I'm waiting until the first official game, competitive game, when I want to sit in my seat for the first time, and that's my seat. And I'm waiting for that. But hearing what everyone's been saying, it's been, from an Everton perspective, incredibly positive. And I think that can only be a good thing going forward. So, yeah, in terms of the atmosphere, acoustics and all that, it seems like they've got that right as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, the acoustics. My old mate Rossi there, who's obviously he's back this season and he's carrying on. He was the acoustics of him as well. Still have his voice ringing in my mind off all the years of knowing and working on the radio. But yeah, I mean, even that, the screens, everything there was essential for what Everton need to be. And the way in which I've said it, I would hope people get excited by the way in which I've sort of portrayed the way I felt it was. I'm sure you would as well, listening to what Matt said and the feelings you had going towards it. Let people go in there and they won't be completely positive about it. That's because it's different. It's a different Everton. I got in there and I had to keep repeating my mind in that this is Everton. It didn't feel or look like Everton. And that's not in a negative way, because I think there's a lot we take there that are going to be more positive than certain aspects of Goodison that we've had to endure during really poor seasons. When we've had to drag that club up. Everton have stayed up in the Premier League several times because of our fans. And I think that needs to be kept in mind when we go there. I think it'll take a while for people to get used to, like you say, the acoustics. They're in and around people that they don't know necessarily that they're in and around. You mentioned earlier.
Well, just do you start in town and walk up, or do you start in wherever and get to the, like, people have got to work that out as well. And the whole, I think this is a big, like, where do you put your pre-match bet on? Where do you go for your pre-match pints? A lot of these things are going to take time, and I think that's going to be more of a annoyance to people, and people realise at the moment, because when 50,000 are in there, that's going to be a challenge in itself.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. But in terms of when you go to it the first time, it's like I said, when you get in behind the wall there, it's vast. And the angles that I've seen it from, having been in the Royal Live buildings a couple of times, you look at it from a distance, it doesn't look that big. When you look at it from the top of the hill there with Sandhills, it doesn't look that big. When you get there and you're below it and you look up and see the size of the the infrastructure that it is, the architect that Mice has done there, it is vast. It reminded me a little bit of the Anglican Cathedral. So when you look at the Anglican Cathedral from a distance, you can see it in the city centre. It's on the skyline of the city centre, isn't it? And when you go there and you look up, you're like, wow, the size of this building.
Yeah.
It felt that way going in there. It felt, you know, it's a hard way to describe it in my feelings, and I had an emotional feeling with it. There were parts of it where I thought, obviously, we don't know in full what it's going to be like when Everton have their first game there. But even when those lads come out, bless them, who no one was particularly interested in, when they came out onto the pitch there, Zcast comes on and there's a roar from the 10,000 there. That was Everton related. That was Everton that you had. And I was sitting there all game long thinking, I didn't think this would ever happen. I didn't think it happened in my lifetime, given the issues we had with the Kirby. I think it's quite funny on social where people are saying, just imagine where we actually could have been there when you think about Kirby. When I mean, the massive dispute, not to put too fine a point on it, but when we should have probably got where the arena is right now, we've pretty much got the same thing.
I was just about to say, Dave, with there was a massive hangover after Kingstock, wasn't there? The fact that we should have been there and what could have been if we'd have been there sooner. And I think part of the adjustments as well is we've been accused, and we've been rightly accused in some ways, of never being able to break that glass ceiling. And I think that's been part of our mindset as well, that Everton mentality that, well, we can't break down or we can't achieve anything because we're Everton and we're still at Goodison. Whereas I think what this new stadium will do, what this new stadium will do, it'll give us that impetus to push on now, won't it? Hopefully.
That's right. That's spot on. I feel as if, look, it's Everton. Anything can happen. But the stars are looking like they're aligning here. Owner, you've got them that seem to be bursting to help Everton and get Everton in the right direction. Management and this stadium as well. You know, this is, dare I say it, and it's only 2 months on. This is an exciting time for Everton, and I didn't think I'd be saying that up until possibly the last day of the season when we needed 3 points when we go away to Newcastle. Didn't imagine that I'd be saying that right now. But look at this podcast alone. We've sat here smiling, loving Everton for who they are. We've done everything about speaking about our club against Man United, your favourite games against United, all a positive feeling. Like my missus is into, she does me head in. I'm always buying a crystal. She loves all that, you know, feelings and fate stuff and all that sort of thing. And when I went in there, I was only thinking, do you know what? This must be how she feels when she gets it like a crystal and it says this one's for love and peace and this one's for making your money better.
Whatever.
Yeah, all of that mad stuff. And I was like, I walked in here and thought, this is what makes Everton better. So yeah, I mean, it's
do you know what?
Incredible couple of weeks, a few weeks, given Moyes being back, given the way we're playing, given the games we've won. And I feel, just to round off there, I'm feeling playing against Man United, that's only going to continue.
Absolutely, and I think if the result doesn't go our way for whatever reason on Saturday, it's the light is still very much there at the minute. And look, just to finish off the final point you've made, it's been dark being a Blue the last few years. It's been a really dark time, and I think some of us don't appreciate just how dark it was, particularly from a financial perspective. The one thing that I suppose kept us going, and Paddy's commented on this as well, is the fact that we've had that ground. Like, if we didn't have that ground, the investment would not be there that we've got now, and the ownership that we've got would not be there now. So in many ways, the ground has been the saviour, but is also hopefully going to herald this new era at Everton. And we, as a fan base, my God, we deserve it. We really do. And I think that it's starting to feel now like that we can achieve that feeling and we can achieve that success. And it might not happen for a long time. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but we always said, haven't we, the last couple of years, we just want to see signs of progress. And I think what the last few weeks have done have given us that indication. And also the fact that we've had this test event and everything's been very positive. And and emotional in a good way. So yeah, I think we're just going to continue them emotions as the weekend goes on.
The difference with all this now is you can touch it, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Things like that, we've lived on hope. And look, that sounds like a little bit too cheesy to carry on with saying those things, but I think that's true. I think we've lived as Evertonians like it's going to happen, it's going to change, and it didn't. I'm not going to use, well, I will use that particular word. There's a new dawn, because how many times have we said that? False dawns, all that sort of thing.
One of these dawns has got to come to be successful eventually,
Yeah,
Dave, hasn't it?
it's not. Yeah, when we wake up
After all the false ones we've had, Lord of averages,
you're going to see
we've got to have one that's a good one.
You're going to see a proper sunrise, aren't we, at some point? Not one where it's pissing down and you can't see the sun for the clouds. But yeah, I mean, it's touchable, and I mean that intent to the stadium. You've got owners who look like they're the real deal in sorting us out. You've got a manager who's come back, a lot of nostalgia going on there. That's what many Everton fans are all about. I bang on about the sentimental side of it. I'm in and amongst it right now, which I never thought I would be. Feels like a different Everton, and it feels like a more positive Everton going forward. So, let's keep the momentum going in the last quarter of this league, in this Premier League season. Get to the summer and really start looking forward to what's going to happen going forward, what we're able to do, transfer markets. Positive feeling all over the place if I had my Mrs. Crystals in my hand.
Well, God knows we deserve these positive feelings, and
exactly.
They've been a long time coming. And while we've got them, let's enjoy it and let's make the most of it. Let's not think, oh, it's Everton this or Everton that. Let's enjoy it, because we are on the up. As the song goes, we're on the up, and hopefully it started the process now of where we really start pushing on as a football club. But there we go. That's the weekly this week, and that's my thanks to Dave. Just coming up ahead on the Blue Room, the lads will be there for post-match on Saturday after Man United. And Dave, and a very special, not mailbag, but ale bag this weekend. Les is going to be recording ale bag in the boozer post-match. If you do listen to us on Patreon, now and again, I just listen to a random mailbag from the past just to give me a laugh. And some of the garbage we come out with is worth your Patreon money monthly alone. So if you don't subscribe to us on Patreon, get us subscribed. The Blue Room EFC. Listen to Alebag as it will be this weekend with Les and the lads. And then mailbag to come in the future. And also, I should give a shout out as well to Subs Weekly on there. Matt does a great show with some brilliant guests on there as well, where they really go over some more of the finer points of our great football club. So get yourself on Patreon and listen to that. Will you be back on Blue Monday with Roger and Les?
I will be, yeah, reviewing the weekend and what's going forward to the following weekend. We get a bit of a break, don't we, as well, with the FA Cup and all that. So I think Les has got plenty of different pieces he's done going into that as well to keep you going before Everton get back in action.
Do you know what I do, just to tell you a tiny little story? When I finish work on a Friday, I've got Blue Monday on, because you should record it quite early, don't you, on a Monday? And I've got that on, and it's just a perfect listen to round off the weekend. So get Blue Monday in your phone or wherever you get your podcast and listen to that. It's a great show with the lads. And then, as always, the brilliant byline is back on Tuesday with Matt and Paddy, and that is all your Blue Room shows coming up in the week. So just a final little bit from me, just a massive thank you. We've had some really nice comments lately, not just on all them shows that I've mentioned, but some really nice comments about the weekly we've been doing as well. Keep your comments coming. We will start picking out, Dave, I think, some of the comments being made by listeners and things have been said, and we'll discuss that. So we'll look to do that in the coming weeks. So keep listening to us on YouTube or however you get your podcast, and give us a subscribe and give us a like. That would be very much appreciated. But it is the end of the weekly this week. Man United on Saturday, another emotional weekend coming up. Up those sexy toffees. We'll see you next week.